Hi, I'm Faith Knutsen. I work for the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs at Ohio University, and this is the third in a series on grant writing. What we're going to discuss in this session is the grant writing process itself. As indicated on this summary slide, there are specific components of a good grant proposal, which are the same regardless of whether you're writing a very small one-page proposal for a local funder or a many-chapter proposal for a federal grant. First of all, you need a clear, concise implementation plan to indicate that you have prior experience or connection through appropriate partners with that kind of experience. That you have a very good idea of what you're going to do in the grant, what the tasks are, what your deliverables are, and in what time frame you'll be accomplishing these deliverables. That you have a compelling implementation team, people who really will be thoroughly engaged in implementing the grant for the particular funder. That you have impact metrics and a plan for capturing those and reporting them to the funder. That your budget is realistic. And most importantly, although this will be the first thing that the funder reads, an excellent executive summary that indicates all of these important components. As you prepare to write your grant, it's important to keep all of your stakeholders in mind. And in the case of being a grant proposal coordinator, the stakeholders include your overall vision people, which might be your executive, your board, your CEO, because their vision and their oversight and review of the grant application is going to be vital before it can be submitted. Extraordinarily important from the perspective of completing the grant on time and with the content that you want is putting together your content implementation team. Who's going to be writing every portion of the grant? Who's going to be editing it? Are there pictures, graphics, charts that need to be put together? And are there letters of collaboration, organizational capacities that need to be written by a variety of internal and external partners? Extraordinarily important, of course, is the budget. Who is responsible for the budget in your organization? Is that your CFO? Is that administrative staff? Those individuals need to be aware of the process from the very beginning as well. And finally, the assumption is that you yourself or someone will be the overall coordinator of the effort, that individual will be looking at the time frame, ensuring that all of the elements are together, ensuring that the request for proposal is met precisely, and above all, that the deadline for the submission is met. Here is a picture of an overall coordinative chart that I used for one of my grant writing processes when I brought my team together for the first time. At the very end, in large letters and numbers, was the deadline that everybody was reaching for. On the left-hand side were all of the actions that had to be accomplished, and the initials in the middle showed who was going to do what when. Almost every proposal will require a specific section called implementation plan or work plan. In that section, you would like to talk about your implementing team, their experience, and your validating factors. What is it that makes this team particularly suited to fit the funder's needs for this particular effort? You also want to put together a plan that has a certain internal rationale that is reasonable to a reviewer, even if they aren't specifically familiar with your content, that is very responsive to the funder's request, that meets all of the guidelines that the funder has laid out, and yet that has that flexibility and innovation that they're looking for that will compare you to the other proposers. You want your writing to be as competitive as possible, and in order to best get that message to the funder, you want to be succinct and very clear about how it is being expressed. In recent years, impact metrics are of particular importance for proposals. Not only do you want to say that you have a certain number of conferences that were held, individuals that were spoken to, people that were engaged, but you want to talk about what the long-range impact of what you are doing has accomplished. You need to have rational impact metrics that are attached to the program goals, achievable metrics that are reasonable within the time frame of the proposal, obtainable metrics that can be requested of your clients, that can be given in both the immediate time frame and also in the long run, perhaps in a longitudinal survey that might be accomplished after the end of the proposal time frame itself. As a proposal coordinator, you actually are not done even after that wonderful moment when you hit submit. There is a process for a post-proposal writing. There are a lot of things that need to be accomplished, even if you do not yet know whether you have won the award or yet not. First of all, you need to ensure that there's digital storage of the final submission. Often there will be a final two, a final, and it's important to put all of those documents somewhere on the cloud, but only the very final submission should be evident when you come back months later to look at it after you've won the award. It's extraordinarily important to respect all of your partners and stakeholders by providing a copy of the proposal so that they are aware of what was submitted. Sometimes some of the content would not be appropriate for all of your stakeholders, perhaps some of the confidential budgetary material, for example, but it is important to quickly, after you hit submit, send out that digital copy to all of the important stakeholders. It's also important to note on your calendar that there is going to be a projected decision date, and you want to check in with the funder when that would be. So put a marker on your calendar for that moment. When the award is announced, either you will have won or you will have lost. Regardless of whether you win or lose, it's important to take advantage of a debrief. A debrief is going to help you in future proposals, whether or not you have ended up with an award this time. Often on the federal level, debriefs are required. If you request one, you will be given one. For foundations and other entities, it's not necessarily required, but you often would be given one if you request it, and it's highly recommended that you do so. Particularly in the federal level, you may receive notes from some of the reviewers. These may seem to be off base, but it's important to recognize that these are the kinds of folks who are going to be looking at future proposals that you have written. And even if they do seem off base, take into consideration when you write it the next time, what kind of content you need to modify so that you can speak to an audience who isn't entirely familiar with your topic. Thank you for joining me for looking at this in-depth overview of a proposal writing process. I look forward to having you join me again for the discussion of actual grant writing itself, for the kind of language and succinct expression that will be most appreciated by the funders. In the meantime, I am always available at my email, knutsenf@ohio.edu, and thank you for your time.